Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another LP Alliance live stream. We are LP Alliance, an inter-caucus coalition dedicated to rebuilding and revolutionizing the Libertarian Party. My name is Amanda Griffiths, and if you're wondering if we're going to do anything for April Fool's Day, the answer is yes, and it's called having me single-handedly host a data analytics stream. But fortunately, I have some cool people to help me out with that. We've got Kyle Davis, we've got Dr. Dave Schrader, we have Alexa Maffey, and you all are on the National Libertarian Data Analytics team, which is wonderful. Dr. Dave, what is it that you all do?
So we're a group of people that came together back in 2020 during the Jo Jorgensen campaign. If you signed up as a volunteer, one of the pull-down things that you could help with was data analytics. 180 people checked that box, and I checked it, and then I waited, and no one contacted me. And I thought, well, I'm a libertarian. I have skills at organizing. I'll just organize the group, and off we went. So like any organization, you have the 80-20 rule. About 20% of the people do 80% of the work, and that held true. So back in 2020, we had about 30 people that were actively involved. We had a very good time, did a variety of things I'm sure we'll talk about. And then we kept going because we felt like we could help people running for governor, supervisor, mayor, city council in the meantime. And we helped a lot of people in the next 4 years. We can talk about some of them. And then we had the core group continue during the Chase Oliver campaign. So that's the background of the group. And we have a lot of very good people as you interview Kyle and Alexa, and maybe Brian will join us. You'll get a good feel for the kind of skills that we have.
All right, yeah. Kyle, what kinds of people do tend to serve on the data analytics team?
We kind of have a wide gamut. Like Dr. Dave is probably the widest background inside of the data analytics realm, where he's worked numerous different like big data firms and built databases and designed and everything. I'm sure he'll go more into this. I come from the data engineering side and doing data analytics for my own business and just a general interest in data in general. And then like Alexa has her master's in her data science. Like, you know, those sound like bigger backgrounds, right? Because of the degrees and that kind of stuff. But then like Brian Beavers just has a really deep interest in data, and he likes doing the analytics and the crunching. And so while he's not a database guy, he takes the spreadsheet versions of things and he goes through, and he's really good with Excel. He's got the background for like accounting. And so he's doing all the same kinds of number crunching, but with a different tool. So we've got folks that do things from watching the FEC data coming in. We've got the folks who are watching data for candidates, building out maps, building out who we should be talking to, analyzing data from text campaigns, both from like a hardcore data principles first data analytics side, and from people who are just interested in it. So like anybody who's ever used a spreadsheet can do something. There's people who are better at AI, like Carter Cole. It's really just, there's pretty much anything that you're interested in. If data is something interesting to you, it's the way to go.
And so you all came on board roughly the same time, is that correct? You were all with no. When did you come on, Alexa?
Well, first of all, a small correction. My master's is in applied economics.
I bet.
No worries. I mean, there's a lot of data analytics in it, so it kind of makes sense. I mean, it makes sense, yeah. But you can also join and not have, a degree in, data engineering or the degree with the word data in it. I joined probably maybe a month or so after I think Dave started the data analytics team. I was one of those people who checked that box, and then I got an email from somebody 2 weeks later, or like I don't know. So some amount of time later, I jumped on a call, told them my background. They were like, cool, join this call tomorrow. Then it was some other kind of data thing, I think more like regional. And then they were asking me, hey, what would you do with this data set? And I started telling them what I would do with the data. Like, I was like, oh, I'd do like a multi-linear regression model. And then they were like, you should go to the national meeting tomorrow.
So when it comes to actually using data, getting data insights, what is it that you all do to get the information that you're looking for? I'm sure it's a really wide variety, but just for a layperson who doesn't really know anything about how you're using various data, give an example, walk me through what that would look like.
So I'll give you a quick overview, and then Alexa can go in depth, Kyle, too. So there are a variety of different, think of them as marketing campaigns. So it could be the marketing campaign you want to do is to reach out, number one, to voters. And the question is, what kind of data can we get about voters? And that includes free data from some secretaries of state, or you may have to have a state party ask for it. But you can also buy data. There's a commercial company called L2 that has some base data, and then they have about 1,000 columns worth of survey data. And not everybody has all the information for all the columns, but it could be, do you support marijuana legalization? Well, clearly, think of it as playing the game of Clue. If you remember the game of Clue, there are a bunch of clues in the data, and what we try to do as data people is pick those out. So number one would be voter clues. Number two would be donor clues. So who are the kinds of people that end up donating to campaigns? If we can pick out the clues for those people, it can help us make marketing campaigns to donors more precise. And the third area is everybody needs volunteers. So who are the kinds of people that volunteer? Maybe they donate, maybe they don't. So you can create models, predictive models based on the data that you've got. And the volunteer data came in and people, joined the campaign and filled out some information about them. So we got information from there. But at the core of the issue is something we call Nolanization. And that's our most sophisticated approach, in addition to the kind of stats like multivariate regressions that Alexa talked about. Does that answer your question?
It does. Well, I mean, and then prompts many, many more. So Nolanization, that refers to the Nolan chart, I'm guessing.
Alexa, you want to answer that one? You're on mute.
Oh,
there you go.
Still on mute.
Right. Sorry.
Yep. No, you're good.
Not on mute. Yes. So essentially, it is named for David Nolan, founder of the Libertarian Party and creator of this chart. Essentially, what we sought to do was we had this this voter data called L2 data, and that's like purchased by someone somewhere.
A variety of people. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people. But it has like thousands of fields in it, and all like everything related to a voter that you could get. And we try to pick out various libertarian positions on various like social and economic issues, and basically we score them we basically just do a sorry
No, you're good.
Basically we kind of calculate their propensity to vote libertarian based on their responses.
Is that sort of like nominate scoring with congressional candidates or congressional office holders?
More in depth.
Okay, more in depth than that. What was it that you all were working on initially? So that you've been doing this for a little while. What kinds of things have you done in the past?
Want me to cover that one, or Alexa, you want to jump in?
We
can give you a good example. So on the Nolanization, the thing that people use, the small card, for example, from the advocates, has 5 social and 5 economic questions. And with that in mind, we took a look at all these columns in the L2 data and said, wow, there are about 25 questions that we could ask that might not be exactly the questions that were in the Nolan chart, but they fit in the category. So examples of social issues would be, are you pro or against abortion might be a topic, and libertarians are split, we recognize on that topic. But the border wall, for example, might be a big predictor. So people who say, I don't want a border wall, I don't like the current policies, they might be good prospects. And so they get points, and we weight the points and add them all up. On economic issues, if you don't want to prop up Social Security by paying more taxes for it, which we know is going to come, then you're probably a libertarian. So you're going to get points for those kind of things. So what we ended up doing for both Joe Jorgensen and the Chase Oliver campaign is the campaigns bought the data from L2, gave it to our group to then analyze and score by group. And then the fun part is giving back the top of the list, just like marketing would be doing. Not all prospects are good for your product. And then we give it to the texting operations group or the emailing group, and then they do outreach. And then we got results back for who clicked through, who returned a text message that was positive. Yeah, love Chase Oliver, or an obscenity because they hate being on those lists. And so then we can collect it and analyze what the click-through rates are if we're pushing people to a website. And all of this is standard practice if you know digital marketing. The one area our group has not really done much on is social media analytics. But there was a team in both campaigns we did work with to take a look there. But because they weren't collecting individual data, it's really hard then to know. But we are doing things. A good example project would be donors. Alexa's worked a lot on that, comparing donors from 2020 to 2024. And also taking a look state by state on those 2 dimensions of social and economic. So the average per state is quite unusual. And I know Alexa's got a slide there.
Also, I should mention usually at least in 2020, we focused on 2 different groups. Registered libertarians, obviously in states where you can register as a libertarian. Not all of them. You can't in all of them.
Right.
Yeah. And then independents under 40. I think that's just a matter of, I guess I don't know whose decision that was, but basically the idea of, okay, libertarians tend to be younger people, plus maybe it's a thing of return on investment you have, or, someone who you pick up and, recruit as a libertarian will be around for a while.
So you look at all that, and so you're recruiting potential donors, you're recruiting voters just to show up at elections. Do you recruit people for anything else that you're looking at? Volunteers. All right.
Yeah, people do show up at events, like Joe Jorgensen had a bus tour. So our group was asked, give us a list of all the people you think are within a 75-mile radius of Bowling Green, Kentucky. And by the way, we need it tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Always.
So with all of these insights, what are some of the most interesting things that you found? I'm sure the answer is going to be different for all of you. I know that Alexa, Dr. Dave, said that you had a slide. What are some of the more interesting insights that you've had?
I'll give you an easy one, and then Alexa can give you probably the most in-depth, interesting part of what she's done. So a good one would be, gee, if you look county by county, and if you color code on a map, each county for the percent of people who voted Libertarian, you will always find, and we use orange to be the best, or we should have used gold, the best Libertarian county. And if you look at the state of Oklahoma or the state of Georgia, you will immediately figure out that the highest percent counties are always ones that have something in common. Guess what it is? universities.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
So Oklahoma and University of Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, those counties are glowing with more libertarians. In Georgia, it would be UGA, right? Go Bulldogs.
So campuses are like a gold mine there, in the literal sense as well as the figurative one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But leading into what Alexa is going to show you, we could take the social scale and take a look at how the state scored. So
wow.
Take it away.
You're muted again. Sorry.
So how did you do this, first of all? How did you tabulate these?
First of all, first we did them by hand in Excel spreadsheets. And then what I decided to do was I created a script / .do file in the programming language Stata, which I had access to because I was in grad school.
Yes. Yeah.
And so basically, and I made it such that it would do that for you. Like, you would import the file, it would do all the number crunching. It's not actually all that difficult scoring it, but just, much easier and faster to do than to do it by hand. And then it would spit out the results. And then I finished grad school and lost access to Stata. So I had to teach myself. So I taught myself Python, or at least a bit of Python, and used AI to translate some stuff. So that I could write a Python script that would essentially do the exact same thing. But Python is free because I was not going to pay for Stata.
And the way you're figuring out, okay, how economically libertarian are these people? You're going through survey data? Is it that way?
Yes, or at least, yes, they're asked questions at some point, and they'll have answers that say, like, support, oppose is the most common, and things like that. Sometimes they don't answer every single question, so certain fields have way more people have responded to them than others. Something we didn't look at very much when we did the model in 2020, but we did more in 2024.
So you're not just looking at libertarians. You're looking at polling data, survey data for all of these people who are on these lists.
To interject really quickly, I pulled up the Haystack DNA fields. So Haystack has, for most voters, not all of these will be filled out, but a lot of them will be, must have issues like in this last time around: Trump versus Harris, Trump approval, Israel, Gaza, climate change, absentee voter, vote on election day, economic anxiety, Medicare for all, immigration crackdown, Black Lives Matter views on immigration, marijuana legalization. And then they've got the hot button issues. So like abortion, death penalty, gay marriage, etc. State or local issue scores, voter identification, ideology, and behaviors. So like if they tell you they're a Republican, maybe ignore them a little more. Like they already are telling you they're not independent, they are a Republican. Right. Those sorts of things. So there's literally like 1,000 fields across this database. And the models are based on over 10,000 different voters' opinions. And then it's done across 215 million voters across the nation. So it's pretty intense. But
yeah, let me add something. Thanks for that, because that gives the list. So what we ended up doing in 2020 was taking all those columns and saying, here are the ones where we think a positive answer or a negative answer would predict about a libertarian. So we whittled 1,000 down to 25 and put them in the 2 dimensions of social, which is on the x-axis here, and then economics. And then we took all of the people in the file for the libertarians and in the file for the independents, and then we scored all the people on that. And so what this tells you, Alexa, is this one the libertarian list?
It
You're on-
is. She's nodding.
Okay. So go ahead and
Yes.
explain it, because this will answer a question. Let me be the straight man here. Which state has the most really good libertarians?
It would seem Kentucky is the outlier there. It's pretty consistently high in both economic and social. And I think the overall Nolan score. So after we had all the social and economic fields tabulated, there was also a field that about voter propensity, basically what percentage of the time had they voted in primaries and elections in even years. So basically the presidential and senator, the bigger ones. We didn't really care about the smaller elections. So we took those plus we multiply it plus that to come out with these percentages. And also everybody had their own percentage. Everybody had a percent social libertarian, percent economic voting percentage, and a Nolan score. These are the averages among people in every state.
So I'm really interested in DC. Honestly, this is not the result that I would expect to see with DC. Your independents being mostly economically libertarian, and then a little over half. It looks like percentage social libertarian. What are you seeing with regard to the red state, blue state breakdown? Where who's more social libertarian, who's more economic libertarian?
Libertarians tend to be the contrarians. So in the red states, which tend to naturally value economic freedom more, you tend to see the libertarian value the social libertarianism more, because it's the thing that's needed to balance the state on the freedoms. So DC is very high in economic libertarianism because the libertarians in DC want that freedom. And so that's the one that they care more about right now.
I see.
It doesn't always hold. You can see that Ohio is pretty high in economic freedom despite being more red-leaning for a while at this point. But
it's wherever you're being repressed the most.
Right.
And there's a lot of theories and stuff. There's the idea that, hey, if I live in Illinois, so I know a thing or two about gun control and how it doesn't work. So naturally, in a blue state like Illinois that has strict gun control laws, us libertarians might be more, you're going to see more of us thinking, yeah, we need less gun control. Whereas, in terms of other, that's a social one, but also oh, hey, we have a ton of taxes in Illinois and we're really, really sick of it. So
gun control could be economic.
Yeah, I mean, some of these are even there's overlap. There's there are questions about going to war and stuff, and that's kind of social and economic. I think when we've done those, we kind of try to put one field as social, one and the other as economic, to balance things out. But yeah, one could argue a lot of them go that way.
Looking at these data, so I've got this in front of me. What do you do with something like this? So you have these data, and what are your next steps going to be, hypothetically?
Typically, an example would be with a governor race in any of these, we could help whoever's running understand where the voters are, especially independents under 40, assuming that they will get the libertarian votes. And we can tell them which out of all those issues are the most important ones to push on, and which ones should you maybe stay away from, because in your state, although nationally it might hold true, these don't look like they're going to be good ones for you. Another use of it was for Alabama. The Alabama Libertarian Party people came to us and said, we actually have the money to do a poll, and we're going to do a slate of people as a group running for libertarians. Can we do a poll based on any insights you have about what are the issues for Alabama people? So we use some of the Nolan questions, and then we used another data set on things that are very hot buttons for Alabama people, like the road, the quality of the roads. And we
will
asked,
build those.
as well as government corruption. So the fun ending question was, do you think that Alabama politicians are A, more corrupt, B, less corrupt, or about the same as the corrupt politicians in the surrounding states? That was fun.
And what did they say?
They thought they were more corrupt.
That's wonderful. Usually people know that this is great, because usually people, when you ask about overall political corruption, they'll say, yes, I think the politicians are corrupt. But then when you say, well, what about your senator or your congressman? They'll say, oh, no, they're fine. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear the libertarians are looking at this differently. What
Yeah.
are some other cool insights that you've derived from the various data that you've looked at?
This leads into another slide that Alexa will cover. So when you look at the states here, if you can see them, a lot of them are red, and some are redder than other ones. So Alexa did a great piece of work 2-3 years ago. Go ahead.
Yeah, so basically I scored them based on, I looked at their states, the state outcome of the last 5 presidential elections, so 2020, 2016 back. And then their last 5 governors, I did it that way because I know different states have different term limits and stuff. And basically, if it was a Democrat, they went Democrat on something, or somebody was a Democrat, that's a -1. And if they were a Republican, that's a +1. By the way, this does not reflect my views of Democrats or Republicans.
Right, a lot of times that's how they code this. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so basically, and also if there was an independent or somebody like from another party, that was a 0, which should happen a few times. Alaska's a weird state. And yeah, based on that, I broke them into groups of basically how red or how blue they are. The only truly like purple state is North Carolina. And even like people like ones, they're only New Mexico and I guess it's 2 of them. But yeah, you can even kind of see, and with the percentage social libertarian, this upward I'm realizing I'm tracing over it with my mouse, but other people can't see that. But obviously there's some exceptions. Ohio is lower for some reason, and so is Alaska. But yeah, there's definitely a correlation, and we've just found this in like pretty much everything we've done in the 2020 stuff, the 2024 stuff. We've talked to Nate Silver from Advocates for Self-Government, who basically administer the Nolan test, the 10-question one, and he's seen the same thing in their data and responses.
I know you guys had talked to Nate Silver. That's pretty cool.
Dave, it was Nate Silver, right?
It wasn't Nate Silver.
It wasn't.
Wait.
I'm forgetting the name of the person.
Why am I-
One of the leaders there, but
Oh gosh.
very smart guy too.
Right. Wait, it's Nate. It's the 538 guy. That's Nate Silver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, my bad. I can't think of the guy's name, but yeah.
Do you tend to
someone
see
from there.
the same thing with, or rather, do you have one of these for fiscal or economic libertarian as well?
Yes, I do. Although that one's less readable. I realized that not long before the meeting. I fixed up the social one, but then the economic one. I mean, you can still see it. It's just not as clear as that one in the deck. It should say percent econ libertarian. This one.
Okay. That's readable.
Yeah. But yeah, and again, you can kind of tracing with my mouse, but yeah, you can see kind of a downward trend in these more blue libertarians in more blue states are more economically libertarian, and then in the red states they're less so. Yes, partially, there's a lot of theories, in part due to contrarianism. In part, I think a large role is the fact that you've experienced the worst of your state. If you're in a really blue state, you probably have high taxes, so you have more opinions about them.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you're in a really red state, you probably want more. You're focused more on social freedoms because they're trying to restrict those.
Well, so this is interesting. So at first I was wondering, is overall with these results, are you seeing higher scores of social libertarian than econ libertarian? And I mean, if the answer is yes, then that might imply that overall the country is more economically libertarian than socially libertarian if these folks are contrarians. Do you have any sense of where people are trending overall?
So obviously this is based on registered libertarian. These are based on registered libertarians only.
Okay.
And then we've also seen, I don't have slides for it, but independents under 40. And
right.
In both models, yes, across both groups, they tend to be more socially libertarian than they are economically libertarian. Again, there are reasons we think that would be related to age. Younger people are a little bit more, they're more focused on the social issues, and then you grow up and you pay taxes and you save for retirement and you're like, oh crud, that kind of thing.
Yeah, if you're looking at college areas too, which it looks like you've got a bunch of colleges coming up in your data, a bunch of universities coming up in your data, you're going to probably see a higher concentration of social libertarians than economic.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, the scores vary across every state. There's somebody who answers, most, if not every economic libertarian question one way, and someone who answers none of them. Or answered many questions, but has the unlibertarian response.
Right.
Let me throw out another comment. A lot of these, when you see the numbers here, these are averages. So nobody would score a 100-100.
Right.
No state would. There will be, however, individuals who score 100 social, 100 economic. And if you add that they always go vote and they're an independent, it's like, wow, that is the target for who we need to be recruiting into the party. And we've given those kind of outputs to some of the groups that we have worked with. The other thing is averages always hide interesting detail. So last night, for example, I was working with some of the inputs from Alexa for our meeting tomorrow night. And it turned out that if we compared libertarians to independents under 40, I was very surprised that in the donor data analysis that the libertarians were scoring much lower on social issues. However, then I realized, we made the mistake again, which we found when we looked at the detail for Alaska, which was we were comparing all registered libertarians to independents under 40. However, if we corrected it for libertarians under 40 compared to independents under 40, you got the answers by and large you would expect, is libertarians are more libertarian than independents in general, comparing apples to apples. So we always want to take a look at the detailed data. And another good example would be if you take a look at the donors overall, 20% of the donors donate 80%. It's even higher than that, like 10% of them. Well, what are the correlations with some of the other fields? Okay, well, age, clearly, younger people don't have as much money to give away as older people. So even though from an overall voter perspective, we've been looking at people under 40 to convert, if you wanted to go after donors, it might be worthwhile to buy the bigger list and look at elderly people who can remember when the government wasn't quite so big. And those might be good prospects for donors.
So we're looking right now at a slide that has the percentage of libertarians opposed to tobacco tax. Is this libertarians or is this also independents under 40?
This is just registered libertarians.
Okay.
All the slides pertain to those.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd
So
like to
what are we
make
seeing?
sense for those, but
What are we
and
seeing here?
And so this is one of the fields that has a larger spread / standard deviation, in that like the lowest state is 45.8 and the highest is 83.3. If you look at the one for social of like raising taxes or opposing raising taxes to preserve Social Security, it's like I think they're all like in the 80s or 90s. And also, based on this, the more gold shaded ones have a higher percentage of libertarians agreeing. And actually, that brings up an interesting point. I had presented a lot of this data and slides and stuff to Spike Cohen in 2021, and he noted regarding the tobacco tax that New York has a very large tobacco tax. And thus it's actually the largest one on this list because people have experienced the tobacco tax and perhaps seen how it doesn't deter people from smoking tobacco, or that it's really not saving any, they're still taxing them in a bunch of different ways, because I think some people kind of figure, oh, well, if we do this sin tax, well, then maybe they'll tax regular people less.
They don't. No. That's not how people. That's not how the government thinks. It's not like let's cut something here. That's not no.
Yeah, no.
The government's like, how do I spend that money?
Let me take less money from you. I don't think so. So we've seen this. Kyle, it looks like you're about to say something. You're just adjusting.
I was going to start talking about some of the things that have come from the group. So like these are really cool internally, but I know that some of the folks watching, for instance, are going to be like, well, charts are pretty, but what has this done for me? What has this done for the Libertarian Party? And so Dave and Alexa were both there for Joe. I was not. So they're going to have more insight here, but we can see measurable change from taking. So let me give an example. In a text campaign, every text costs, say, 3 cents, both incoming and outgoing. So if you send to people who don't want to talk to you, you haven't just wasted 3 cents. You've almost always wasted at least 6 cents, because they're going to respond with, hey, fuck you. And because of that, you now have 6 cents, so 2 more people you could have sent a positive message to. That data is why this is so important, because the fact of the matter is we are financially constrained in a way that the Republicans and Democrats just aren't.
Right.
During the Chase campaign, for instance, the Republicans and Democrats spent $10 million apiece trying to tank Chase, which, as you can go see from the FEC data, is more than Chase raised for his own campaign. They spent more money trying to tank Chase in specific areas. So the Democrats were paying for ads for Chase in more Republican areas, and the Republicans were paying for ads for Chase in more Democrat areas. So Chase's effective number of how much raised basically becomes this 20 million plus number because of the Republicans and Democrats, because to them, $10 million is nothing out of their $1 billion spent. It's, it's less than 1%, right? So the thing that we do is leverage. The thing that we do is multiplication of force, because at the end of the day, if you look at a campaign where it's a local campaign, so it's about $100,000 to win on average, you look at that from the Democrats and Republicans, they're just going to blow that money. They've got teams, they're paying for it. We're volunteers who have a lot of experience and background in this. And so we're taking the donations that are coming in and we're multiplying that force to get better outcomes. For local and state elections especially, that can be huge. I know a lot of people look at it and they're like, well, we don't have a chance at the presidential election because the 2 big ones are going to win. Fine. What's the excuse for local and state? And when it comes down to it, the thing that local and state is missing is someone who can crunch that data. And so what our team can do, if we can get that data, and if we can get more robust background coming in, more people coming in and everything else, is build out solutions for everybody so that you have those reports as your candidate. For your candidate, we can build out the lists for who to knock on their door. Because sure, if you're walking through a neighborhood and you intend to knock on every door, that's an option. Odds are it would be a better use of your time for your volunteer to skip the houses you know are not going to be receptive to you. And so you don't lose out on the time of walking down the driveway, back up the driveway, knocking on the door and waiting. They're not going to care. And so suddenly your volunteers are doubling how many doors they can knock on that are going to be effective. The entire concept is every text should be effective, every door knock should be effective, every call, where your candidate shows up to canvas. All those things are things the data team can drive, that we have driven. One of the things that Chase has been put down about is that almost 10% of his campaign locations were gay pride, right? They were pride rallies. They were LGBTQ pride, and people are missing the fact that they had a huge response to Chase. We captured a bigger turnaround there, and so, and like in Chase's case, where, and I don't want to get off on the LNC and Chase thing. We've talked about it before, where we had more limited resources. We had to find a way to make that money stretch even further. Mm-hmm. And so that's what the data team does. It's how to take something that, it's a David versus Goliath situation, right? It's you have one rock to throw at the giant. If you throw it as hard as you can, but it hits him right in the middle of his chest, he probably doesn't care. If you can sit and say, well, this is the angle you got to throw out, and here's how you got to throw the rock, you might get him in the eye. And that's more effective. That's what the data team is. It's a way to take a David versus Goliath situation and be smarter than the other guy so that we can actually pull out victories that would otherwise definitely be impossible.
And it's not just votes, so it's also donations. So I mean, it's the yes. Rocks can get you more rocks, to use yes. the very sophisticated analogy here. Yes.
Dr. I want to add one more thing, Kyle. You did a good job of sparking my memory on it. So when our group is faction free, so we try to stay out of the internal party politics. We just want to help libertarians win, and we do that with better precision, like Kyle said. But you can also, in addition to targeting who should we reach out to, you could try out different messaging for different groups. And my comment that I made to Angela, who's from LA County, where I live, quite a while ago, was all this internal fighting about, there's one and only way. Well, I'm sorry, there isn't one and only message. A message that might appeal to younger, in your face people that's strong and loud is going to scare grandma away.
Yeah.
And the collection of issues that you want to put in your messaging, and no marketing person would go out there with one ad for forever, right? And if we're smarter about using the data and taking a look at sub-segmenting the groups into their issues, right? Gay issues might be one area, abortion issues might be another one. Sophisticated marketing companies, and I work with a lot of them, know how to do all of that work, and it's all based on analyzing the data. A couple other comments in terms of things underway right now. For example, we're going to do a 2A gun rights kind of rally in LA for a second time. So I was just pulling the data from LA County people and pulling that together in the column that says, are you a gun owner? Duh. That will help screen out the people that probably will want to come. And then I did a concentric circle around the location and asked the organizer, how far do you think people will drive for a gun rally? About an hour. Now it's LA traffic, so it could be like an hour. Could be
1 mile away. Yeah.
But I picked 60 miles. Okay. So all of a sudden, the database of 48,000 registered libertarians shrunk down to 2,000. And guess what? We can afford to do texting or outreach to 2,000 people. And if we get a 5% response rate, then we probably have a pretty good rally, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's using the data. It could be mapping. It could be, selected fields from L2. We're only inviting registered libertarians because it's kind of a social event too, and we want to get more people to join that particular region of LA. So you can put a bundle of reasons together and then come up with a very targeted marketing campaign.
It's really, really cool. Go for it.
I'd also like to add, well, we don't have L2 data for every state. So Illinois, for example, is one we never had for any. You can't register as a libertarian there, and we didn't have the independents under 40. So Bill Redpath came to us. He was running his senatorial campaign, and he wanted to do outreach via texting. And what we ended up, we don't have that L2 data. However, we did have a list of Joe Jorgensen donors and or volunteers. So they were people that we texted. And then we also, I think Dave was the one who kind of looked into this and could tell you more about the methodology. Ended up targeting college cities, people who lived there.
Right. Bill had the money to do radio ads. So the question was, which places in the state should we do radio ads? And it's like, no brainer, college ones. And we took a look at the county registrar data for how many voters there were. And then afterwards could correlate, gee, did you end up getting a higher lift for the money? Right? Did you make the dollars pay off more by doing radio ads? So that's the kind of stuff that the group can do.
And so, yeah, then there's the question, do college students listen to radio? I'm assuming you could do that with the podcast ads and things like that too.
Actually, an interesting thing, though, from Penn State, we had a volunteer who did some work there. College County, it's not necessarily the students. The faculty, the staff all count too, and they all are in the voter rolls.
Oh, interesting. I'll have to wonder if I've got faculty who are secretly voting libertarian hiding in our midst. I'm sure I do, actually. I'm sure there are a few. It's election night here too for the Supreme Court. So with all of this, is the thinking that you want to make this a permanent outfit of the LP, your team?
There are a couple of answers to it. So we've stayed a little bit independent of anyone being able to control us. Mm-hmm. Hey, we're libertarians, right? If people treat us nicely, we'll work with them. If people throw rocks, then we probably won't work with them. We do have the people in the group sign NDAs to protect the data and protect the use of the data. So you can't grab the L2 data and run your real estate business with it, for example. And we haven't had any complaints about any of that. My own view is we want to become helpful from an institutional memory perspective so that anybody who's running can stand on the shoulders of what other people have tried. So we're becoming kind of a project archive for, okay, when we get a project, what's the goal? What's the data that you have? What's the analysis that we did? Afterwards, what were the results? How good were the models that we constructed so we can make them better for the next person who comes along? And that's my main goal. Now, how you do that can be, a bunch of files that are all over the place, not organized very well. We, this time, did a more disciplined job with Google Drives and directories. But the right way to do this professionally would be to build what we would call a data warehouse, where we have all the data organized, it's all described, and that's what Kyle has been working on primarily. So you can talk about that.
So I have been building out a libertarian database and warehouse. I've been working with Stephen Nikela, and I've been working with some of the folks in the LNC because I really believe that while our current format for this data strike team, the Libertarian Data Analytics team, is effective, I think that we could be another order of magnitude more effective if we had an actual database to go from and that was persistent and permanent. Right now, we have a lot of work that's done from spreadsheets, because at the end of the day, the way we're getting data from people is a spreadsheet, right? So if I pull that into a database and I give you tooling so that you can do your own queries and without having to write code, suddenly, you only need a few engineers or a few people who really understand data science to allow libertarian normies effectively to be able to use this data for their candidate. Like, as a hypothetical example, I'm from Georgia. So Chase had 2 campaigns in Georgia before the presidential campaign, Libertarian presidential nominee. His House campaign went well for what it was. It was a special election, very last minute put together thing. And he did very well for that. And his 2022 Senate campaign was phenomenal. It drove a runoff between 2 major candidates.
Yeah.
It was international news. Yeah, it was huge.
I wrote an article about that, actually. So.
And that data to use again, instead of having a persistent database, is a thing of figuring out who has the data, who can see that data because of NDAs, who can use that data in what way. And, like Dr. Dave said, like, we're signing NDAs, so we can't just give you results and give you things from it. There are, we can make a recommendation sometimes without being able to actually give you a report. These things are all layered, and some more freedom there by putting the things in a database so that all of that is automatically tagged as who can be given what, and permissions built out so that, you can see what kind of NDA someone has, and the computer handles all that so that it's not a waste of an individual's time every time, means that we are even more effective. We have data in different formats, a lot of different formats, that it's 25 years old. That data is still valid. Mm-hmm. There are still people voting who were voting then, and we can see their history and how they've changed and how their mind has changed, and we can still market to them. There's 25 years of donations there that have not been maximized, right? Mm-hmm. Which, some of the people listening are probably like, this guy wants to take my money for things. Yes, I do.
Yes.
I absolutely do. I want you to donate to the Libertarian Party. And the way to get you to donate to the Libertarian Party is to make every dollar you donate worth something to you, and to make it known that every dollar you use is used as effectively as possible for the things you care about. That's what the data team can do. That's what my goal is with this database. That's some of the goal that's out there from the LNC and from Steve and Nikayla, and this has gone all the way back to Steve Dasbach for this data collection. And we keep watching, and this is a little bit of the political nonsense with LNCs. We keep watching LNCs come in, decide the way data's been done is stupid, and instead of trying to move it toward what they want, they blow it up and start over. That's insanity. You have to build out the tooling that you want. That's fine. You do not destroy the other tooling that's been there. If we were working in this iterative process where every time it gets better and every time they're like, oh, I think this is more important, it's like, okay, we'll work on that feature. We could have an entire suite where every state could dump a voter file. We could have all that data come in, all that data get automatically crunched. The actual warehouse can be doing so much for us. There is no reason so much of this has to be done by hand. And it's being done by hand because there's nowhere to do it, right? Like, I went through a lot of hoops to be able to get a database set up with persistent data on it without people being like, PII stuff, are we doing things right? And it's like, yes, I can show you how things are working. I can show you how the layers are being done. Everybody who's got access to it directly has an NDA for the highest level. And we can take that and we can put reports out from it that are sanitized in the correct ways. We can give you a knock list that just tells you which houses to knock on, which just tells you which pitch of the pitches to give. You can have someone who knows nothing about the house they're walking up to other than this is the script I need to read from. And so suddenly you have a sanitized PII. Suddenly you know who to market to, and you send the marketing like Dr. Day was talking about earlier, where you got your micro targeting. So you can say this person cares about gun issues. So you can make a dynamic newsletter where the issues they care about are all that's in their email. It's like every newsletter is custom made for them. We can do that. And then we can also say, well, this person's been giving $25 a year as one chunk. Let's see if we can get them to upgrade to $5 a month instead. And suddenly they're giving $60 a year, but in their mind, they're only giving $5 at a time. Those kinds of things, those marketing tricks, those ideas work. There's a reason they're used. The expertise is here to do that. Realistically, if you look at some of our peak years, the Libertarian National Committee gets like $1 million in. I legitimately, and this is a dangerous thing to say without having talked to people, I think we could 10x that no problem. I think we could bring in $10 million a year if we actually took the time to build something out. And it would take 5 years to build it up. But after 5 years or so, we could be bringing in $10 million every year and growing consistently to be a thorn in the side of the Uniparty.
And
but
for
we
just
need
$5
backing.
a month, everyone, you can support this.
In the arms of the angel. Exactly.
What can people do if they don't maybe, or if they can get $5 a month, but then what else can they do if they want to be a part of this amazing apparatus that you're building out?
Like Dave mentioned earlier, if you have any interest in data, we can use you. We can build out the volunteer network.
How do they get in touch?
If you, that's a great question at the moment. I will happily give, like, my Twitter's on the screen. I own KyleDavis.com. You can send me a message at me at KyleDavis.com. And I can get you in touch with people. I am not going to volunteer Dave or Alexa or anyone else's emails. I will let my inbox get flooded. We probably should get some way to send the entire group a message, which I don't think we currently have a listserv like that. Mm-hmm. That's a thing to talk about.
Yeah.
We got the data team. You can figure it out.
Yeah. Oh, also, LNC is really bad at keeping data files. The Jorgensen campaign turned over all that L2 data, but basically any data they gathered, to the Libertarian National Party, so that they can use it for, future campaigns and useful stuff. They lost it, and they came to us and were like, do you guys have copies of this? I was like, yeah, I do. Gave it back to them. Apparently they lost it again. So now even though I'm not like a data scientist, I couldn't build out a database, but I can create a table and I can dump all those L2 data sets into it, which I've been steadily doing over the last month.
Yeah, it's good that we're kind of collectively data hoarders.
Yeah.
If you want to think of it that way.
Doesn't take up as much space.
The right way to do it is how Kyle explained it, of if we had a shareable, protected database where we could put everything in there, that would solve part one, which is the data mess or the data dump. And you want the ability to join the data in a variety of ways. But the second and third parts of that are equally important. So where do we store the insights that we get? Well, part of that is we can make them into standard reports for state parties, for example. But there will always be like, hey, I'm running for governor. Give me a template of what should I be doing. So we're in the midst of writing a how to work with our group document that I just put out draft 2 today to the team to look at. And then the third part, which we hadn't really done a very good job for Joe Jorgensen, but we did a much better job for the Chase campaign, is normally you would do a lot of experimental design and testing. So, gee, does this message work better than that one? Right? Is our new set of voters working better in terms of click-throughs than the way that we did the previous time? And so what you do is you take the data, like we took our 10% top scoring Nolan people this last time for the states where we had the money to do outreach. And then we compared it to a random sample, a control group from all of the other ones. And if we aren't blowing smoke, you would expect a better response rate. So that gets into the world of stats, experimental design, and it all depends on the database. But at the end of the day, we're taking action. We need to know, is the action working or is the action not working? Or does it need to be recalibrated? Like maybe older people aren't responding to this message very well, but younger people love it. And those kind of refinements also really should be going into like an idea database that we keep up to date as we go through time. So part of that is in our heads, like the content of this. Part of it are the graphs that Alexa was showing on insights on red versus blue states. But all of that's equally important to getting the data organized in one place.
Kyle, I almost forgot, you have a final story that you wanted to share. Since Georgia went really, really well, I know that there was some involvement with the team with Georgia. How did that go?
So we wanted, by we, the Georgia Dissent wanted to have call lists of who they should be reaching out to, who they should be talking to, etc. Who's most likely to show up. And they started with 17 people. They had about a little less than a month to make calls before the election, the convention. And with the data that we have, that we were allowed to use for it, mostly me and Alexa on that one. I don't think you did anything for that one directly, Dave, right? I'm not crazy. Yeah.
Well, yes, you are. But
yeah, he's here. So, so we put together a list of the 600 most likely people to be willing to either donate or to show up to the Georgia convention. And we reached out with surveys for them. And we knew some people that were going to be most positive. We called them first, and we pulled in about 20 people of those. And that was out of 70. So we pulled 20 out of 70, give or take, which is a real high percentage. When you're talking 30% are coming in and saying, yeah, I'll do that, you're a winner, right? And then we had a wider group afterward. So there was chunks of like less and less obviously going to come to the convention and going to talk through things. But during it, every single person talked to, whether they were, with the Georgia Dissent or whether they were against Georgia Dissent, got interviewed. That data was collected. And so it's going to be stuff that's going to be useful for LP Georgia overall, even if it wasn't necessarily what the Georgia Dissent wanted. We now have percentages of people who liked the RFK JFC, the ones who have left Libertarians because they feel Republicans fit them better. We got some people to start donating again. It's during that 1 month, altogether we raised a few $1,000s, almost 3,500. And if you look at Georgia's yearly membership donations, you're on the order of 13,000, 14,000. So, from 1 month's hard work, we got almost a third, as much donation as Georgia gets on an entire year. That's the level you're looking at. You're looking at being able to quadruple the amount of money coming in just from the libertarians that have already donated. That's without reaching outside the party hardcore. That's just from former donors, former everybody else. This is something that LP National could be doing. This is something that every state can be doing. And I don't think there's a state in the entire nation that would be like, yeah, we don't really need 4 times the money. That's insanity, right? Like everybody would love to just instantly have 4 times their money to push candidates and buy better software and buy better tooling and hire more people in and grow the party. Money begets money.
Dr. Dave.
I want to add one more thing. I was flashing back to the Reno convention where I spent some time going from delegation to delegation to ask the state chairs, do you have a data group? And I knew the answer was mostly no. Mm-hmm. And it's like, our group doesn't need to do everything for everybody. I'm not a power hungry person. We can decentralize all of that, but every state party should have people who could do the kinds of things that we're doing. And we're very happy to show them what we've done, give them code so they could do it themselves. Sometimes we've had college kids, interns that have joined the group, and it's a real pleasure to teach them, how to do all of these things with data. So kind of my dream would be to get more states with their own data people, and we can help train them up and show them the kinds of things. That's why we wrote the how-to guide, because people can steal the idea of go do mapping of your counties, your precincts, right? Mm-hmm. Brian, who's not on the call, is doing that right now for Florida. And the idea is if we can see where the pockets of support are, that's good input for the Florida State Party on where should we be running libertarians.
So Alexa, I know Dave had one more thing. So do you have one more thing too?
Yeah. Everything we do, every project, every candidate we help out, we gain additional insight, and we also, spread awareness. So I mentioned before doing all that texting data for Bill Redpath, and actually our gubernatorial candidate, his campaign manager, heard about what I was doing and was interested in doing the same for Scott Schluter. And we had plenty of people from that file and stuff that hadn't been texted just because money constraints. And it was actually interesting because Bill kind of wanted to go the very hardcore, diehard, I am a libertarian, this is who I am, take it or leave it. He wanted to put that out there. Whereas Scott was more I'm a third party candidate. The messaging was a little bit more subtle, such that maybe people would ask more questions and catch on. And yeah, just interesting results from that. And, the fact that I could help them both. Also, I was the one who taught myself Python and made it send out thousands and thousands of texts. I also have thousands I have a lot of responses. So in these texts, you have to say your name and what campaign you're with. And then you have to give them an option to opt out. So my name's Alexa. I'm with Bill Redpath for U.S. Senate. The number of texts that say, or responses that say, Alexa, go F yourself. And I'm like, oh yeah, I bet you think that's really clever. Yeah, so did 40 other people. It's just funny. It pours out into a data spreadsheet. So I'm not actually it's not like they're blowing up my phone or anything.
Right.
It's, funny things like that.
So unless Devin has a video queued up, because sometimes he surprises me, we will go, and that's terrifying. We will go. Okay, thank you, Devin. We will go into a final question. Kyle, I have a new one for you because you've done this a couple times and you can't ask it correctly anyhow. So what is, for Dr. Dave and for Alexa, what is one book that is not by a libertarian or about libertarianism that you think that libertarians should read?
iPencil.
What is it? Oh, iPencil. Okay, yeah. That's how the pencil's made, and it's a bunch of.
No, it's by libertarians.
Yeah. Well, not
maybe
the
that's
pencil.
a good one. I'm trying to think. I have a whole bookcase of libertarian books, but I think they're mostly written by libertarians. So I don't really have a good answer for you.
Alexa, do you have one in mind?
Yes, and I think it's kind of cheating. Well, first I was thinking like, what about a TV show? Because I would say that would be Firefly, most libertarian show ever, created by a non-libertarian. But basically, Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, the novelization.
Huh.
Just about how, and it's just showing how basically this, I mean, there's a lot of things. It's way better. The novel is just way better than the film, much more detailed, and people say it's one of the greatest Star Wars novels / novelizations there is. But yeah, just watching how this, this corrupt politician is just pulling people around like strings and watching a democracy die very, pretty rapidly at that rate. I think that's worth noting, as much as that's like I don't know, probably a cop-out answer because it's dorky.
Not at all. Not at all. Kyle, if you could wave a wand and get one libertarian wish, you can make one libertarian policy thing just happen right now. What is your one thing that you're doing?
I assume that I'm not allowed to munchkin this wish.
Can't make more wishes.
But I mean, I can't just give you an absurdly long list of I would like a world where this is the case, and then give the.
No, it's
okay.
just no clause. You can't separate this with commas.
Okay.
No semicolons either. Don't get smart with me.
I think that my thing would be that all taxes collected have to be single issue taxes. I know that there are libertarians that are mad at me right now saying, you should have taxes. And I understand. But assuming we have a country, government exists to some degree, government has to run, which in the world we're in is kind of the situation. And so I think that if we went back to the original concept of taxation in the US, where any tax was temporary for a specific purpose and limited in time, that we would see phenomenally less government overreach. I think we would see less regulation in general. And so I think that would be my linchpin thereby.
Good answer. All right, Kyle, Alexa, Dr. Dave, thank you so much for joining us and teaching me new stuff, and hopefully some of the viewers too, who are undoubtedly more schooled on data than I am. But thank you very much. And thank you all for joining us tonight. And we will see you again soon. All right. Bye.
Great. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.